गजाननं भूतगणाधिसेवितं कपित्थजम्बूफलसारभक्षितम् उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणं नमामि विघ्नेश्वर पादपङ्कजम् नमामि विघ्नेश्वर पादपङ्कजम्।
अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। स्थावरं जङ्गमं व्याप्तं यत्किञ्चित् सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चिन्मयं व्याप्य सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सर्वश्रुतिशिरोरत्न विराजितपदाम्बुजः वेदान्ताम्बुजसूर्यो तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चैतन्यशाश्वतशान्तो व्योमातीतो निरञ्जनः बिन्दुनादकलातीत तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ज्ञानशक्तिसमारूढः तत्त्वमाला विभूषिता भुक्तिमुक्तिप्रदाता च तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अनेकजन्मसम्प्राप्त कर्मबन्धविदायिने आत्मज्ञानप्रदानेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। शोषणं भवसिन्धोश्च स्थापनं सारसम्पदा गुरोपादोदकं सम्यक् तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। न गुरोरधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरोरधिकं तपा तत्त्वज्ञाता परं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। मन्नाथ श्री जगन्नाथ मद्गुरु श्री जगद्गुरु मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गुरुरादिरनादिश्च गुरुः परमदैवतं गुरोः परतरं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। त्वमेव माताश्च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव श्री साई देवा।
श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानाम् अयग्रीवमुपास्महे। ॐ गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीमेधादक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गणान्त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतान् शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती हीनामवित्रयवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् ॐ नमो भगवते रुद्राय ॐ नमस्ते रुद्रमन्यव उतोत इषवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु धन्वने बाहुभ्यामुत ते नमः यात इषुः शिवतमा शिवं बभूव ते धनुः शिवा शरव्या तवतया नो रुद्रमृडया या ते रुद्रशिवा तनूरघोरा पापकाशिनी तया नस्तनुवा शन्तमया गिरिशन्ताभिजाकशीः यामिषुं गिरिशन्तहस्ते बिभर्षस्तवे शिवां गिरित्रतां कुरु माहि गुंसीः पुरुषं जगत् शिवेन वचसा त्वा गिरिसाक्षा वदामसि यथा नः सर्वमिज्जगदयक्ष्मगुं सुमना असत् अद्य वोच्यतदिवक्ता प्रथमो दैव्यो विशग अहीगश्च सर्वाञ्जम्भयन् सर्वाश्च यातु धान्या असव्यस्ताम्रो अरुण उत बभ्रुः सुमङ्गलः ये चेमागुं रुद्रा अभितो दिक्षु श्रिता सहस्रशो वैशागुं हेडयीमहे असव्यो वसर्पति नीलग्रीवो विलोहितः उतैनं गोपा अदृशन्नदृशन्नुदहार्यः उतैनं विश्वा भूतानि सदृष्टो मृडयातिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय मीडुषे अथो ये अस्य सत्त्वानोऽहं तेभ्यो करन्नमः प्रमुञ्च धन्वनस्त्वमुभयोरार्नियोर्जां याश्च ते हस्त इषवः पराता भगवो वप अवदत्यदनुस्वगुं सहस्राक्षसतेषु ते निशीर्य शल्यानामुखा शिवो नः सुमना भव विज्जं धनुःकपर्दिनो विशल्यो बाणवागुम् उत अनेसन्नस्येषव आभुरस्य निषङ्गतिः या ते हेतिर्मेडुष्टमहस्ते बभूव ते धनुः तयास्मान् विश्वतस्त्वमयक्ष्मया परिभुजा नमस्ते अस्वायुधाय नादताय धृष्णवे उभाभ्यामुत ते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिते धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान् वृणक् विश्वतः अतो यैषु दिस्तवारे अस्मन्निदेहितम् शम्भवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्रयम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिकाग्निकालाय कालाग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदा शिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः नमः सोमाय च रुद्राय च नमस्ताम्राय चारुणाय च नमः शङ्गाय च पशुपतये च नमः उग्राय च भीमाय च नमो अग्रे वधाय च दूरे वधाय च नमो हन्त्रे च हनीयसे च नमो वृक्षेभ्यो हरिकेशेभ्यो नमस्ताराय नमः शम्भवे च मयोभवे च नमः शङ्कराय च मयस्कराय च नमः शिवाय च शिवधराय च नमः स्तीध्याय च कूल्याय च नमः पार्याय च वार्याय च नमः प्रतरणाय चोत्तरणाय च नमः आतार्याय च लाद्याय च नमः षष्प्याय च फेण्याय च नमः श्रीकत्याय च प्रवाह्याय च ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्री साईश्वराय नमः हरिः ओम् ॐ नमो भगवते दक्षिणामूर्तये मह्यं मेधां प्रज्ञां प्रयच्छ स्वाहा ॐ नमो भगवते दक्षिणामूर्तये मह्यं मेधां प्रज्ञां प्रयच्छ स्वाहा ॐ नमो भगवते दक्षिणामूर्तये मह्यं मेधां प्रज्ञां प्रयच्छ स्वाहा ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Saram everyone. So quickly, our next item is going to be a wonderful offering, dance offering, coming up by Riya Sethi. And she's a senior this year. Obviously, schools are starting, next month, right? We are almost in the month of August. And very rare that I look at something printed and reading. But this is something very special, I'm just trying to read because she has been getting trained in learning Kathak, right, from Srimati Kumud Savla of Nitya Natya Kala Bharati. So this afternoon, Riya will be offering Ganesh Vandana, Guru Vandana, Shiva Vandana, and also Durga Chalisa. Thank you.
गंगं गणपति गज मुख मंडल गिट गिड़ थुन थुन तत्तै जय जगवंदन वक्र तुंड दानी दाता विघ्न हरन शुभ करन धगिन तगे तुम किट थुड़ंग थुड़ंग गदिगिन थै थुड़ंग थुड़ंग गदिगिन थै थुड़ंग थुड़ंग गदिगिन थै।
Ganesha, gum gum Ganesha, gum gum Ganesha, gum gum Ganesha, Ganesha. Jai Jai Ganesha, Jai Jai Ganesha, Jai Jai Ganesha, Ganesha. Gum gum Ganesha, gum gum Ganesha, gum gum Ganesha, Ganesha. Karam Srikaram Shivam Shankaram Mrityubhikaram Maheshwaram Vidvamsaharam Vidveshaharam Shulayudhakara Shubhankaram Sarvapatakaharam Devam Sarvopadravanashakam Sarvada Pranamamyaham Sarvaloka Samrakshakam Pahi Mam Pahi Mam Rakshamam Samrakshamam Sri Ganesha
Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Oh
Sai Ram. A warm, loving welcome to all the visitors and members. Thank you all for taking time and making it to the center this afternoon. I know it's a wonderful day outside. It's a beautiful day. So for those who are on YouTube, sincere apologies for the technical glitch. So this is the challenge. When everything's connected, working, so beautiful, one small thing, off. I know, sorry, Ria, you had to dance over and over, a couple of pieces. Just want to check, are we able to hear? Yeah? Do we have to change the mic, or are we good? Okay. Sai Ram. Okay, hopefully it's better on the YouTube because the feedback that we've been receiving is that it's not quite audible. So before the actual course of the program starts, we want to make sure that we eliminate all these technical glitches. But again, sincere apologies to everyone. Sorry, Swami, we did not do our groundwork one more time. Happy Guru Poornima to all. Of course, it's a very special occasion. In fact, since my childhood, not even a single year passed by without celebrating Guru Poornima. The video that was shown last week, Swami was saying, let's say somebody's teaching chemistry, somebody's teaching maths, somebody's teaching a subject. They're all teachers. But however, in real life, we do come across gurus. Those gurus only shower one thing, blessings, and share their wisdom, right? Basically, they remove ajnana and fills us in with sugyana, meaning they remove the darkness and shows us the brightness, light, and the wisdom. So that is Guru. Unfortunately, we have Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba as our Guru, our Master, our Lord. So quickly, maybe before I get into the introduction, thanks to our brothers and sisters who have started this afternoon's program with lovely Vedic chanting, lovely offering. That was so divine, so powerful. And also, Ria, thank you so much. Please join me in giving a big hand to Ria one more time. Thank you so much for honoring our request, and also so beautifully in a short time, about 4 or 5 Vandanas offerings were done. So beautiful. Thank you once again. So if we can go to the next slide, Rahul. Thank you. No, my volume, so it's coming. So quickly, as we can see, this afternoon program, the next upcoming is going to be a talk by Brother Akshay, follow the master, followed by, we'll have a talk for about 90 minutes, then we'll have a break, then followed by a couple of announcements, then Engados have come up with a nice, lovely musical offering. Then, of course, our bhajans are always vibrant at our center. and we'll conclude with Arati. So quickly, I know the bio of Brother Akshay has been shared, but in short, he was born in Mumbai, in India. Probably when he was born, it was Bombay. Then later on, he came over to the USA and for studies. Then followed by, after completing studies, he moved over to Tampa Bay, where he lives with his family, and by profession, he's a doctor, right? But as far as Sai world is concerned, he has served our organization in many capacities at a local center, and also he served as the devotional coordinator for our region and vice president for the region, and also regional president for our region, and also most recently he also served as national service coordinator, for our region. So basically, this afternoon we have a brother who is filled with Swami's service. And before one quick surprise I wanted to share with all of us before Brother Akshay comes over, maybe we can go to the next slide. That is 6 seconds.
Dearest Bhagavan, we, your children, from the southeast region of the USA, offer our most humble salutations at your divine lotus feet. Respected elders, dear Sai brothers and sisters, loving Sai moms, we have journeyed here to this auspicious abode of our Lord Sai as the culmination of a year-long pilgrimage. Our dearest Bhagwan has responded to our yearning by supporting us every step of the way. The theme of our pilgrimage is Journey to Sai, through Sai, S-A-I, service, adoration, illumination. Dearest Bhagwan, we and our fellow brothers and sisters in the USA are realizing that true happiness cannot be found through our wealth, material goods, military, or political power. Swami, the USA is spiritually hungry, and we humbly request you come in your physical form to our country and inspire the entire USA
to Prashant Nilayam. However, this year he came to our Prashant Nilayam in Atlanta. So please join me in welcoming Brother Akshay. Sign on.
I offer myself to my Divine Mother, Father, teacher, and best friend. Sairam, everyone. Forgive me, I always get emotional when thinking of Swami, so bear with me. It's been many times that I've come to Atlanta, and the vibrations in this holy place are so powerful. And I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this trip. And I hope you can bear with me as I give my perspective on my understanding of Swami's teachings. And by no means am I an expert, just giving my humble take on things. And I hope you can let's make this interactive too, so feel free to ask any questions, and I'll ask some questions as well as we go through the next 90 minutes or so. Okay. So when Brother Ravi called me and said, we'd love for you to come for Guru Poornima, and he said, what theme would you like to speak on? And I really said, whatever comes to your heart, and we were on the phone, and the follow the master just flashed in my mind. And I said, how about follow the master? And Ravi says, that's perfect. So I think this is coming from Swami. So the first knowledge that I'm aware of Swami using the term in a public discourse, follow the master, was in Vrindavan in 1975. And he talked about following the master, facing the devil, fighting to the end, and finishing the goal. And so, who is the master? I know we have some SSC students here. Who is the master? Right? Master can mean many things to many people, right? Is it God? Is it our Atma? Is it our own conscience inside of us? Is it truth? Is it love? Is it peace? Is Dharma our master? So, I think Swami would say they're all one and the same, right? All of those things are one and the same. And for those of us who needed something more tangible, right? God can be so abstract. So for those of us that needed something more tangible, this was one of the reasons the avatar took birth. It's for people like us that needed that tangible form that we can see and touch and feel and connect with. So it's really for his devotees that he took birth, and he gave us his message of follow the master. And not only did he give us the message, he demonstrated that message. He showed us by every little act of his, every little word of his, how to behave. And just by paying attention to Swami and his life, we can learn a lot about how we follow the master. So what does it mean to follow? We know who the master is. It's God, who's for us who are Sai devotees, that's Swami. So what does it mean to follow Swami? How do we follow Swami? So, again, lucky for us, all we have to do is listen to him and watch him very carefully. He was always teaching, always. Every gesture was a teaching. Every word was a divine proclamation. So what I want to do is maybe cover 7 ways that we can follow the Master. And this is all, of course, from Swami. So the first way is to emanate love. And people have described Swami as nothing but love, pure love. Someone said he's love walking on 2 feet. So emanating love, that's really the core of who Swami is and the core of what we should be doing. And so there's a story that I thought was really touching. There was an interview, and a very senior person was in the interview room with a bunch of people. And the elder devotee asked Swami, "Swami, how is it that you love us so much? Especially when you know our shortcomings. You know our shortcomings. How is it that you can still love us so much?" And as an aside, I have a flashback to one year we had an interview with Swami as a part of the doctors group in 2002. And we had prior notice that Swami was going to give us an interview. So a bunch of the doctors, 3 or 4 of us, were sitting in the canteen having lunch together, trying to plan for Swami's interview. And all of a sudden, one doctor says, "I've done so many things in the past, and I know he can read our minds." And all of a sudden, he started sweating. And all of a sudden, the rest of us started sweating, knowing that we're going to be in his presence. And he knows all the, immature things we've done and continue to do. So how can you still love us, Swami, knowing all of those shortcomings? And this was Swami's reply. "Love is my nature. Love is not separate from me. It's not distinct from me. It just flows spontaneously. And I don't even know what it's like to be without love." So that's where we need to be. That's where we need to be striving to be. Another story in an interview, one of the devotees asked Swami, "Swami," I thought it was a great question. People ask wonderful questions. "Swami, what do you see when you see us? When we see you, we see God on the throne. What do you see when you see us, Swami?" And Swami says, "I see only love and light. I see only love and light." Beautiful. And then one day with the students, Swami was in an interview, and he just blurted out, "Boys, as I see you all, I can only see an ocean of light, the light of the universal consciousness." So that's what he saw. When he looked out on his creation, on the universe, he saw nothing but love. He did not see imperfections. He saw nothing but love, and that's something we need to emulate. We need to see love everywhere we look. We need to see love. We need to feel love. We need to hear love. Everything should be nothing but love. And I love this one story from his previous avatar as Rama. And there was the story where Ravana sent 2 spies to the camp. Rama's camp was embanked, ready to get into Lanka. And Ravana sent in 2 spies, what do they call it? Counterintelligence, to infiltrate the camp, assess the troops. What's their formation? What are they going to do? When are they going to attack? These 2 spies entered Rama's camp, and they were captured. They were easily spotted and captured. So they brought those 2 spies. Some wanted to maim them. Some wanted to tie them up. Some wanted to imprison them. Some wanted to kill them. What does Lord Rama do when they're brought in front of him? Lord Rama says they were sent for a task. Let us not get in the way of their task. Show them around the camp. Let them see whatever they want. So they were escorted, the spies, to every area, looking at all their military might, looking at looking at everything, open book, until their heart's content. And then the spies were let free and went back to Lanka. Now this story really demonstrates the power of love, not only from Rama, of being so loving, but the transformative power of love. The love that Rama showed these spies transformed them. They were so touched by this love that when they reported to Rama, they couldn't open their mouth. They could not reveal any of the information. They were just transformed by the love of Rama. One time, there was a group of YAs in an interview with Swami, and they were really interested in meditation, and they couldn't wait to, get information on the secrets for meditation from Swami. So Swami kind of cavalierly said to the group, meditation, yeah, it's a good way to pass the time until you're ready to love. Right? Nothing he says is without deep, deep, profound meaning. It's a good way to pass the time until you are ready for love. Love is the goal. Everything else is a prelude to that. It's the path and it's the goal. You can describe life, you can describe life as nothing but a journey from love to love. While you're interfacing with love, all of the creation is nothing but love. So it's a journey from love to love using love. So the first thing was, how do we follow the Master? Embody love. Be as loving as we can. Second, how else can we follow the Master? Give prime importance to our parents. Swami over and over and over talked about giving importance to our parents, their needs, their desires, no matter what our age is. From when we're a child to when we're seniors, we give importance to our parents. So there's another story. There was an interview that Swami gave to his students. And in the middle of the interview, as he's known to do, he materialized a ring. And this was in the private interview room with one of the students. He had brought him into a private room, materialized a ring for that student. And Swami says, don't show anybody this ring. It'll cause jealousy. So don't show anybody this ring. Don't let anybody know that I created it. So then he went back out into the main interview room, and Swami was bantering with everybody. And as they were wrapping up the interview, the student, as everybody's filing out, the student said to Swami, Swami, can I tell my parents? And Swami became very upset. He became upset. He said, do you ever need permission to tell your parents anything? Do you need God's permission to tell your parents? And he said, give me the ring. And he made the ring go away. And the boy was so dejected. And moments later, Swami remanifested the ring and said, God never disappoints his devotees. But see this little leela that he does to show us how important. You don't need permission when it comes to your parents. You owe everything to your parents. You don't hold anything back from your parents. And Swami himself, of course, showed the example to his own physical parents, even though he's the avatar of the universe. He set the example. He listened to his parents. He made his parents happy. He did all the proper rituals that you're supposed to do in that culture that he grew up in. He gave prime importance to his parents, and he demonstrated that. So, third way that we can follow Swami is good company. Give importance to good company. And there's another story many years ago, and Swami took a bunch of students to Kodaikanal. And Swami would be in the car, and there would be a bus with students in the back, and they would all be traveling to Kodaikanal, a vacation spot. So halfway through the trip, Swami tells the car to stop, and he says, I want to be with my students. And he gets out of his car, and he jumps into the bus with the students, and everybody's happy. And then Swami says, oh, look at that. And as the bus is traveling behind the student, everybody's, worshiping the car, because they know it's Swami's car, and they're worshiping Swami's car and throwing everything on Swami's car and running after Swami's car. And Swami says, see that? Good company, by association, what you associate with, that car was associated with me, and look at how everyone's treating that car. And the students laughed. And then he said, the zinger, he said, now I'm associating with you. This is the power of bad company. Everybody's ignoring the bus. See the power of being with the good and the power of being with the bad. The fourth thing is being obedient. Being obedient. And there's a quote from 1963. Obedience to the Lord's command is the secret to your liberation. Secret to your liberation. Obedience to the Lord's command. So, of course, we all know in this Kali Yuga, what's the number one method for reaching the Lord in this Kali Yuga? There's many, Swami says, but Namasmaran, right? We hear this all the time. In the Kali Yuga, the path is Namasmaran, thinking of the name, chanting the name. Is that sufficient? Can you just chant the name? Or is there a better understanding? Is there something about that chanting of the name that we should be thinking of? What are elements required when you chant the name? Or can we just sit there like a tape recorder and chant the name? So here's a quote from Swami, 1964. The command of the Guru, or the Lord, is even more important than the name of the Guru, or the name of the Lord. Of what use is the repetition of the name without, at the same time, purifying the impulses by observing his commands? More important than chanting the name is so important. More important than chanting the name is following the command. Another quote, 1961. Lead your lives according to my teachings without the slightest modification. First, have faith. Then the experience is granted. You worship with faith, and you will experience grace. Faith results in grace without your even being aware of it. So what does Swami, when Swami says follow his commands without modification, what does that mean? What does that mean, follow his command? What can be modified? What cannot be modified? How do we decipher that? Do we literally follow everything he said everywhere? Sometimes what he says appears to us, mortals, as conflicting, right? So how do we really stay true to be obedient to his command? What do we need? We need discrimination. We need discrimination. We need to properly understand the fundamentals of his teachings before we start quoting peripheral things and blindly following them. We have to understand the periphery, the core of his teachings. And then everything else flows from that. The periphery changes based upon the time and the place and the circumstance, the culture, the age, the era. All of that changes. What doesn't change are the fundamentals. Love all, serve all. Right? And that has no qualifications, right? It's not love all except X, Y, Z. It's not serve all except X, Y, Z. All is a pretty all-encompassing word. I mean, you don't leave anything out. So Swami says experience comes after faith, right? We hear this in our society all the time. Well, I'm not a believer, but I will be. But I haven't had any experiences. Once I get the right experience, then I'll believe. But Swami says that's putting the cart before the horse. You have to have the faith, and then the experience will come. Why? Why is that? One guess is by having faith, you open the door. You have an openness. Otherwise, we're limited. Our egos are limited. We have our own ways of seeing things. The faith helps open the door. And once you're open, that grace can come in. And then the experience will come. Otherwise, whatever experiences you get are not going to really do it for you. How can faith give us grace? Swami says faith will give you grace. Well, when you have faith, then you will follow his teachings. If you have true faith, you can't help but follow his teachings. And when you follow the teachings, the grace will come. Number 5, have gratitude. Have gratitude. So here's a story. One year when I was in Parthi, we would be in the clinic seeing patients, and sometimes the clinic would get early, and we would be able to come in while Swami was already out. And somehow the Sevadas pushed me this way, and I ended up on the veranda right behind Swami. I have no idea how I ended up there. And this was the gratitude program that was going on for the students. I think the students, when they graduate, they do a gratitude program. And so I was sitting, very close to Swami, that far away behind him, able to see Swami, able to see the students. I had a perfect perspective to see the students and Swami, and more importantly, the interaction between God and his devotee. And it was such a powerful, powerful experience for me, because each student got up individually and they had tears in their eyes, and they would, one by one get up and say how much Swami has meant to them and how he came into their lives, and they had to leave. They had to leave the portals of the institution. They were so emotional, and there were tears in their eyes, and there were tears in Swami's eyes, and I just started bawling. I couldn't help myself, just seeing this exchange of love between God and the devotee, and that gratitude that was there. And I thought this was probably orchestrated by Swami for me to end up there, so I can learn that lesson of gratitude, and I can learn and emulate the love that these students have. So what's the best way to express our gratitude to Bhagawan? Can we just say, Baba, I love you? Baba, I love you, Baba. Can we just say that? Here's a quote from 1991. What you have to offer me is the good name earned by you. This is the highest expression of your gratitude. And how do we earn a good name? We follow his teachings, right? That's how we are expressing our gratitude. Same thing with our parents, right? As parents, what if our daughter or son says, oh, mommy, daddy, I love you, mommy, daddy, I love you, right? But then they don't listen. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a daughter or a son that every day says, I love you, but doesn't listen? Or would you have someone that follows your instructions? That's gratitude. Number 6, exhibit sacrifice. So what is sacrifice? Sacrifice is one of the prerequisites for moving on the spiritual path. Here's a story the Swami related once. 3 people reached the gates of heaven, and they had to get past the person that's going to decide whether they continue into heaven. Okay? So the first person declares, I'm the master of scriptures, of all the scriptures. I've studied scriptures my whole life. I've memorized the Vedas. I've memorized the Bible. So they're proficient in the scriptures. And to please open the gates so he can come in. So the guardian of the gate said, you are familiar only with the text. You have no practical experience. You may leave. The second man came up to the gate. I have performed many yagas and yajnas, sacrificial rites and rituals. I've performed many of them. The guardians told him, you have performed the sacrifices, but for selfish aim. You have no place here. The third person, an illiterate farmer, came to the gates. I'm a poor farmer owning a hut, just 2 acres of land. I've been offering food and drink to passers-by, giving them shelter when they need it. I don't know any scriptures. I've shared whatever little I had whenever I could. This is the only sadhana I've been able to do. And the guardian said, "You may enter." So this story illustrates the truth that only those who are ready to sacrifice and this is Swami saying this. Swami is saying this. The story illustrates the truth that only those who are prepared to sacrifice what little they have for relieving others in need are entitled to enter heaven. And that's Swami saying that. This is in March 26, 1988. So sacrifice is putting the needs of others before our own. It's very simple, right? I can't speak for you, but I tend to do the opposite, right? It's always me, and then I'll think of somebody else. That's not spirituality. Putting the needs of the others before your own. This is interestingly also how Swami defines culture, right? We have a lot of talk about culture. Well, Swami has defined culture as refinement, and refinement is you're really thinking of the other. That's real culture. Everything you think about culture, the essence of culture is thinking about the other, doing the things for the other. Here's a quote from Vrindavan in 1974. When there is self-confidence and self-satisfaction, you will be able to do self-sacrifice, resulting in self-realization. Thus, immortality is the result of sacrifice, tyaga. It is for this reason that all the yajnas and other rituals in this country have been intended to symbolize sacrifice. So it starts with self-confidence. Self-confidence is the foundation. Everything has to be built on self-confidence. If that confidence is shaky and you're not starting with that self-confidence, everything else you build can collapse. Like those unfortunate people in Florida, that condo, everything just collapsed. So in our spiritual condo, right, that we're all a part of, we all have our unit. The foundation has to be strong. And Swami tells us, what is the foundation? It's self-confidence. So what is the confidence in? What do we mean, self-confidence? Our inner divinity, the Atma within us, knowing that we are God. Okay, so what if I don't really relate to that? I don't know that I'm God. It's hard for me to fathom something like that. Well, then have confidence in your parents. Your parents are God. Can you have confidence in your parents? Can you have confidence in your teacher? So everything starts, even in the mundane world, even in the material world, confidence is the recipe for success. You want to be a good tennis player? Confidence. You want to be a good engineer? Confidence. So, self-confidence, how does that lead to self-satisfaction? When we're confident, we know that everything is okay. We're complete. We're satisfied. There's nothing we need. There's nothing lacking. So we're satisfied. We have self-satisfaction. We're no longer lacking. Our desires are diminished. Ideally, they're gone. We're desireless. We're satisfied. You don't need anything. And then, see, self-confidence, self-satisfaction. Now you get to self-sacrifice, right? If you sacrifice without the self-confidence and without the self-satisfaction, you're not going to be really able to sacrifice properly, right? It's not coming from the place that it needs to be coming from. So self-sacrifice is that immediate step to self-realization. Self-confidence, self-satisfaction, self-sacrifice, self-realization. Sacrifice is right there, right before self-realization. You can't get there without self-sacrifice. It's a fundamental spiritual principle. Only when we give up can we achieve. And what is that self-realization? What is self-realization? I can't speak from experience, but I can try to tell you what I think Swami is saying. To see the whole, to see the oneness, the true awakening of the completeness, the merging of that sat, the full sat, the existence of everything, with the chit, the awareness. So there's everything, and then there's that awareness of the everything. So you merge that sat with the chit, and then you have that full ananda, the bliss. Sat chit ananda. So Swami would always say, you have the sugar and you have the water, and you mix the sugar and the water, and you have the beautiful syrup that you can enjoy, the ananda. So, Swami's whole life was nothing but sacrifice, right? That's one way you can look at the life of not only this avatar, but any avatar. The entire life is a demonstration of sacrifice. And he's the perfect case study for sacrifice. We all learn, I'm sure the children all heard these stories of Swami growing up as a child. And letting, his family, they weren't of great means. His father very rarely would go to the bigger village, get the supplies for his shop, and maybe buy some clothes for his family, and let them choose what clothes they want. And little Satya always was letting everybody choose the clothes first. Always says, you pick, I'll take whatever's left over. Why? Because he's demonstrating. That's one thing we have to remember. Everything he does is for our benefit. He's showing us the path. Getting, the touching story when he was living in Uravakanda with his elder brother who was a teacher there. And they had a water shortage, and the well was 3 kilometers away. And Swami would go 2-3 times a day carrying the water for the whole family, and I think for the neighbors sometimes too. And to this day, to the end of his physical sojourn, he had scars on his back from the days that he was in Uravakanda carrying the wells. He had scars on his back from that. Again, he's just demonstrating. I have taken birth to demonstrate sacrifice for everyone else. This body is yours, he would say that all the time. And then, of course, when he was still living in Parthi with his grandfather, Kondama Raju, they for a short time lived together. Swami would make him his lunch. He would run to school and run back, make the lunch, clean up, run back to school, as a child. And then what about just everyday darshan? That's a sacrifice, really. I mean, if any one of us did it, it would be a big sacrifice. Day in, day out, no holidays, no weekend, you have to go out there, And he didn't do darshan for his benefit. Did it for their benefit. In fact, there's reminds me of a story that I heard on Radio Sai. I think I might be sharing it later, but I'm prompted to share it now. And it's a reminder that this darshan Swami did was for our benefit. And he really, really wanted to not let anything get in the way from that darshan, because he knew how powerful it was, and how people, went great distances. So there was a story, and I can't remember who related this. One of the students related this on Radio Sai. But this was in the old days, and I think it was in Whitefield. So a bus of devotees pulled up, and they came out of the bus. The bus arrived late, after the darshan time was already over. And they came out of the bus, and the student could tell these were not of good means financially. They had tattered clothing. You could just tell by their clothing. These were very simple farmers from far, far away, different part of India. And so this journey for them is a big deal. And they were told by the authorities, you missed the darshan, and they had to leave. They had to tend to their farms. So this was their only opportunity to get darshan, and they missed it. And they were dejected, and they were ready to leave, and Swami had sent somebody out and let them know he's going to see them, a special darshan. Now, this was in the summer, and there was hot sands everywhere, okay? These people had to walk all the way out to hot sands and sit for Swami to come for them, okay, barefoot. So the student who was attending to Swami, when Swami was going to come out and greet them, brought the chappals, the sandals for Swami to wear because the stand was very hot. And Swami sternly said no. And the student was taken aback. Why is Swami sternly saying no? And Swami walked out in the hot sand and gave these people darshan and pad namaskar and walked all around and just spent lots and lots of time with them. And then they left, and Swami came back, and he knew that this student was perplexed. Why was Swami mad at asking him to wear sandals, right? Why did he give? I mean, of course, Swami feigns madness. He's never really mad, but he acts it. So he should have an Oscar every year. He acts it, so we can really pay attention to him. So he faint. Why? Because how can I? This is Swami saying, how can I wear sandals when they are all barefoot and they had to subject themselves to the heat? So again, he's demonstrating that sacrifice, that he himself would rather suffer. The simplicity of his food, the simplicity of his clothing, the simplicity of his shelter, right? We all know he lived in a little tiny room. Just simple, simple, simple. That's another example of what we should be doing. We should be simple. And of course, he sacrificed his very body for us, right? Throughout his life, he took on illnesses regularly. I mean, we can spend story after story after story and be here for hours and hours talking about taking on this student's cough, this student's fever, this student's this student's that. That's only the students, let alone the millions of people that he's taken on stuff all the time. And up to the very end, he sacrificed his body. And we don't know everything he does. We just see the surface, right? We only see the surface of what he does. We don't know what's going on deep, the deep symbolism, deep planes of existence. So when he breaks his hip, we think, oh, he broke his hip. What does that mean? It can't just be a random thing. There could, could that be a sacrifice for Mother Earth? We don't know. But we do know that he was born for the purpose of nothing but sacrifice. And so all the way to the end, all the ailments that afflicted that body were not because the karma affected that body, because no karma affected that body. It's because he took that on as a sacrifice. So an example of Jesus, right? He sacrificed his life at the end. Jesus knew they were coming for him. He could have easily left. He knew they were coming. He told his disciples he could have easily left. No. He demonstrated this. He sacrificed for the better of others. He allowed himself to be captured. He allowed himself to be tortured. He had the power not to be tortured. He had the power not to be sacrificed. Demonstrating sacrifice. Not concerned about him, his own physical body. So how can we ever, emulate these great masters? Well, we can at least try in our own little way, right? We can start small. So even little things at the center, how can we demonstrate sacrifice? Well, devotional singing, right? We have a devotional singing program. Could we sacrifice our needs for a greater good? I may like this, but perhaps for the members, it might be better if we do that. So I'm going to sacrifice what I want because I'm looking at the big picture. How can I help others? How can I serve through this? Service is not just a formal project that we set up a couple of times a week and go to it, right? That's something that drives us to make every moment of our life service. Every act should be service. So little things, how the way I dress today, Where am I going? How can I dress in a manner that I'm not going to hurt anybody, that I'm not going to offend anybody, that I'm not going to make anybody feel bad, right? I'm going to think about the other rather than think about myself. So every little thing should be, how can I think of others and putting others before myself? Ravi, how am I doing on time? I want to make sure. What time are we finishing up? Okay, great. Okay. So even at the center, little things like that. Service project. We all may have our ideas of how to run things, but can we sacrifice that for the order, for the discipline, for the protocol? That's another act of sacrifice. Study circle, can we sacrifice our need to be the scholar, our need to look good for the benefit of the group? Can we let the person that is new express themselves, give them room to express themselves rather than jumping in and dominating, right? That's sacrifice. The culture of the center. Can we sacrifice some of our needs that perhaps the center can be of a culture that people from the community could be drawn to it? Can we think about the community around us? Can we sacrifice some elements? So little things we can do. We're not, at the level where we can sacrifice everything, but can we just every day think of a few things that we can sacrifice? So number 7, strive for unity. Unity. I think this is the essence of Vedanta, right? Oneness. There's only one. United. There's no two. There's only one. So it's the essence of spirituality, unity. And nature, God has designed nature to show us some wonderful examples. And one example is geese, which I saw a while back. Geese fly in a V, right? When you see geese flying in the sky, they fly in a V. And that formation, scientists have studied and analyzed and I'm not a mathematician, but they analyze the physics behind it and all of that. And they realize that they can go 70% greater distance because of that V and the way the aerodynamics and the flap and one in front of the other. That V formation makes them go 70% further than if they were by themselves. So that's unity, that's cohesiveness, that's working together. Swami would also say, over and over again, he would say, the proper study of mankind is the study of man. Have you heard that quote? The proper study of mankind is the study of man. And that quote, when I first heard it, I would always get perplexed. What does that mean? What does that mean? The proper study of mankind is the study of man. And as with anything Swami says, there's multiple levels of our understanding of what he's trying to say. And one way that I'm starting to understand it is you look at the body, okay? You look at man, and look how beautifully that body is designed to show unity and cohesiveness. So when we eat, right, our tongue is manipulating the food, but our teeth is not biting the tongue. Harmony, united. There's diversity, but there's a unity. Goes down the esophagus. The stomach starts secreting acids, digesting the food, gets transported through the intestines, and then eliminated, right? And the bloodstream brings the nutrients to every cell in the body. And every cell in the body puts waste back to the bloodstream, goes to the kidney. The kidney eliminates the toxic urine. The lungs inhale the air, but they share it with the rest of the body. It goes through the alveoli into the bloodstream. It's just an amazing orchestra of unity and diversity, right? So man represents unity and diversity beautifully. So this is what mankind needs to learn. As a society, we are all so different and we're all so diverse. But can we not learn from our own bodies of how different things just gel together and one doesn't claim to be more important than the other, right? Without the stomach, we wouldn't survive. Without the kidney, we wouldn't survive. Without the mouth, we wouldn't survive. and yet, they're so different, but they're so dependent on each other. So I think that's one way to understand the proper study of mankind is the study of man. Swami always would, many, many discourses he's told, and I know we're all familiar with this story, but it's a great story. The story of the hand and the fingers. You guys familiar of how there was a cast spell on the hand, okay? There was a cast spell on it. So the fingers forgot that they were part of the hand. They thought they were separate. And so once you think you're separate, what happens? Ego. I'm better than you, right? If you don't see separate, you can't have an ego. Who are you going to be better than? But once you're separate, you can start comparing, right? So the fingers, the spell was cast. They each thought they were separate. They couldn't have the vision to see that they were really all one entity, connected. So, each finger started bragging. The thumb said, without me, you guys are powerful. Try to grab something. The thumb is the most important thing. I'm the greatest. And then the middle finger laughs out loud and says, you pygmy, I'm the tallest. You're just a pygmy. You're tiny. And I'm strategically placed in the middle. And anybody knows that in a photo, you're going to put the most important person in the middle. I'm the greatest. And then the ring finger, kind of, says with a yawn, you guys don't know what you're talking about. And he kind of has this air of affluence, Only, I'm the one where people wear all their important rings, I'm the ring finger. You guys are peons. I'm the most important. Then he was flaunting the diamond and the platinum on on himself. And so you guys forget, I'm the one that gives you status and prestige. You guys are nothing. So then the little finger became smug, started boasting. I'm the most important spiritual finger, and spirituality is more important than anything else. Don't you realize that when man prays, who's the closest to who he's praying to? Me. I'm the most important. I'm closest to God. So they were fighting amongst themselves. Now, we listen to this story, right? And it's kind of amusing, and it's kind of ridiculous, right? Of course, they're all connected, right? It's kind of a ridiculous story. But think about it. If you look at us from the perspective of a sage, we're equally ridiculous, right? A sage looking at us and seeing us bickering, we look equally ridiculous because we're all one. Can't you see that? Why are you guys fighting? You're all one. So, we fail to see that we're all really one. We fail to see that unity. And Swami, going back to another story, one of the first camps I went to, I think it was the year 2000. It was the first medical camp I went to. I was kind of new and didn't know how things went and was just kind of sitting in the background. And the elders, the senior doctors, they would kind of guide us and tell us what to do and what not to do. And one thing they always harped on was unity. Be united, be united. This is what Swami is looking for. Because the years that we had bickering, he ignored us. The years we were united, he would pay attention to us. So that's what Swami's looking for. He's not looking for the most patients we've seen or the cures we've done. Who's really the one that cure, right? It's the saying that is God cures and the doctor collects the bill, right? So who's really curing? It's Swami that's curing. So he's not judging us on how many patients we're seeing or how many people we're curing or anything like that. He's judging us on our unity. How can we put our egos aside and how can we work together? And that's something I've seen over and over again in the organization. Is when we're united, we get rewarded over and over and over again. And here's a quote from Swami. In union lies strength in this Kali age. So this Kali age, Swami has said, this is an age of quarrels. He says the pun, I think it says Kalahala. The Kali Yuga is the Kalahala Yuga. It's the age of quarrels. And we see this all the time in every aspect of our society. But Swami says, in union lies strength in this Kali Yuga. Being together. There's a beautiful discourse that Swami gave in 1983 to a small village. Swami would go to many, many villages and talk to the villagers. And so in 1983, he went to a small village. Can't remember the name of the village, but he addressed them. And this is what Swami said to the villagers. And I think this is important because it doesn't just apply to a villager. It applies to us. It applies to all of us. This is advice for all of us. The villages are very backward today. To remove this backwardness, the first requisite is unity in the village. Villagers must be helpful to each other. If anyone is inflicted with pain, all others would feel that they are equally affected. If the village is considered as a body, all the households in it are different limbs of the body. Harm to any part to one is to be treated as harm to the whole. Villagers should learn to speak sweetly and pleasantly. A harsh word can cause lasting damage. This was April 8th, 1983. And then in November of 1998, Swami said, members of Sai organizations should consider unity as their very life breath. You can't live without breathing. So unity as your very life's breath. So remember earlier I shared the story about Swami manifesting the ring for the boy, and the boy said, should I ask my parents? And Swami says, you should never have to worry about sharing anything with your parents. And so that story. So the other lesson from that story is you don't need permission to do noble acts. You don't need permission to do a noble deed or a noble act. If the intention is pure and is for the benefit of others, you don't need to wait for a directive. You don't need to quote scripture. You don't need to look for a legal document. You don't need to find a guideline. You don't need to look for a historic precedent. When there's an opportunity for unity, no permission is needed. That should be the default position. We should be united. You don't need to ask or get permission to do something that's going to bring things together. So unity is so important, and Swami would talk about that so often. And this is a tough time. The past few years have been very difficult for all of us. And we're all being tested. This is the time for tests. And of course, nothing happens without his will, right? Nothing happens without his will. Don't think that, Swami is ignoring us, he's abandoned us, he doesn't like us, he's punishing us. All of that is wrong thinking. He's here, he's in charge, and he loves us by definition. So everything that happens to us is only for our benefit. We label things that happen to us as good. We label things that happen to us as bad. But really, everything that happens is for our good. It can't be any other way. It cannot be any other way. We get everything we deserve. Nothing could be fairer. And this is how God has designed the universe. This is the most fair universe we could possibly be in because God has designed it. So everything has a purpose. Everything is for our good. Everything is for our benefit. We may see things as that's not for my good, right? I might get into a car accident or get a flat tire, and I'm going to see that, that's a bad thing, right? But from a spiritual purpose, that's not a bad thing. That was meant to happen because I deserved it, and it was meant to happen not because I'm being punished, but because that's really the experience that I need to grow. Every experience we have is not a punishment. It's what we need to grow. That's what's being given to us. This universe is completely under God's control. Everything is planned, and every single thing is for our benefit. So we need to keep that in mind when things appear so difficult, and it's been difficult for everyone. But that's something we have to take a step back and almost step outside of ourselves and give ourselves that advice every now and then. Because we forget. We get caught up in this Maya, right? We all forget. And just a couple of times a day, if we can say, let's take a step back and remember how much Swami loves us. And he's in control. And everything is for our good. You know, that's something we have to remind ourselves to do. So, you know, and sometimes the tests that we get, you know, Swami always says, right, when you hang a picture, and if it's a very, very valuable, important picture, you're going to check the nail and make sure it's good before you hang the picture that could fall and shatter, right? So it's an analogy Swami has said, you know, before he hangs his picture on us, which are the nails, he's going to test. You want to make sure we're steady. And you can't progress without a test. How can you go to the next grade without a test, right? It's not only for the benefit of everyone else, but really for your own benefit more than anyone else. When you pass a test, you gain that strength. You gain that resolve and that confidence when you pass a test. So when we come through these tests, we're transformed. And so there's a purpose for these tests. Now, the tests sometimes are not, you know, the answers to the test sometimes are not what we think are the answers to the test, right? Many times, Swami could give us a dilemma, right? And the right answer for me may not be the right answer for you, right? The passing the test may not really have anything to do with what answer you come up with, right? The pass of the test is your motivation. What are you thinking? What is your purpose? Are you being selfish? Are you being loving? Are you thinking of the other more than yourself? You know, do you want to do something because your family will benefit? Have you thought about how other families will benefit? Do you want to do something because you're going to get a special privilege that others might not get? Is that your motivation? So, and no one can answer that for you on the spiritual plane other than yourself. No one. No one can judge somebody else. You just can't. You don't have you can only judge somebody if you have all the facts. You don't have all the facts. You don't know. You can never know what somebody's motivation is. It's impossible. So you can't judge you can't assume you know somebody's motivation. And the motivation is very, very important. So, good time? Should we take a break? Is this getting too heavy and boring? Should we how much time do we have left? 25 minutes. How about we pause a little bit and see if there's some questions, or take a few questions, and then maybe I can share a few experiences. That might be a good change of pace for a little bit. Anybody have any questions or anything? And if not, I'll go on to a couple of experiences. So let's see, Swami, guide me on what to talk about. So Swami has saved my parents' lives on several occasions. And I can speak of, I'll speak of the very first occasion. When I had my first interview with Swami, it was with the doctors group. And Swami would be very gracious and give attention to everybody. And a lot of the doctors, this was their very first interaction with Swami, including myself. So, and we had that conversation where all we're remembering is all the bad stuff we've done, and we're nervous and we're sweating and we're sitting there. And to top it off, the leaders were warning us. The leaders were like, don't ask any personal questions. Otherwise, Swami's going to stop the interview. This is a group interview. Only ask spiritual questions. If you ask personal questions, Swami's just going to cancel the interview. So we're all kind of on edge. And then they said, don't even look at the women. If you glance at the women, Swami's going to end the interview. So we're in the interview room, and plus I can't believe we all fit in that room. There were 30 or 40 of us in that little tiny interview room. And we were just like scrunched and so we're uncomfortable, we're scrunched, we're petrified, we're afraid of doing the wrong thing, and that's how the interview starts. And then Swami just beautifully enters, sits in his chair, he walks over, turns the fan on, sits back down, and then he just immediately put us all at ease. Just immediately. Just started talking to each person. What's your name? Where are you from? And I was all the way in the back. I kept thinking they're going to close the door before I can fit in this room, because there was literally nowhere for me to go. And I'm really thinking, oh well, this is there's another, because there's so many times I think I'm going to get an interview, I never got one, so I'm like, it's my destiny, it's not going to happen. So I was really ready to have the door slam in my face, but luckily I was able to get in. I was sitting all the way in the back, So Swami just went one by one and talked to people, and just gave them attention, and just put everybody at ease. And then halfway, and this was like a 45-minute to an hour interview that he gave our group. And somewhere in the middle of that, he said, "Boy, what's your name?" I think I was in my early 30s at that time. And in the American culture, when you're in your early 30s, you don't get referred to as boy. In India, it's very common, and Swami refers to people as boys, but he said, "Boy, what's your name?" So, and at this point, I didn't think Swami was going to ever talk to me. I'm nobody. Why would Swami even talk to me? So I wasn't even expecting him to address me. He's talking to everybody else. I'm just enjoying being there and watching the interactions. I had no expectations. The only, and so when he said that, I didn't answer, because I didn't think he was talking to me. And then he kept looking, and I looked behind me, there's nobody behind me, and I realized, wait a minute, he's talking to me. And then he ignored me then. He went right over to somebody else. And we spent like 5 minutes talking to somebody else. And then again he said, "Boy, what's your name?" And this time I knew he was talking to me, and I said, "Akshay." And then he went like this, "Akshay." And then he said, "Boy, what do you want?" And I had no idea. I had, not rehearsed for this. I never thought this was going to happen. I didn't know what to say. And he said, "Boy, what do you want?" And I kind of didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. And then he said again, "Boy, what do you want?" And I couldn't get anything out of my mouth. And then finally he got a little bit stern. I mean, not angry, but just a little bit more emphatic. And then he says, "I have the whole world in this hand. I can give you anything you want. Boy, what do you want?" And then I said, "Swami, I want whatever you want for me." And then Swami said, and I hope I can get this right, Swami said, "I want whatever you want, whatever I want for you." And everybody started laughing, and the whole room just started, just twisted it, and, it made everybody laugh. And then he again said, "Boy, what do you want?" And I said, "Swami, I want you to cleanse me." And he looked at Dr. Geeta Kamath, was sitting at his feet in the front. And he looked at her and he says, "He wants me to give him a bath?" And everybody just started laughing and laughing. And then he again said, "Boy, what do you want?" He wouldn't let go. And I said, and then I have no idea where this came from. I didn't think this through. I blurted out, "Swami, I want a ring." And Swami went like this. And everybody else went, because he hadn't materialized anything in the interview. And we were supposed to not ask anything personal, only spiritual questions. And I blurted out, "Swami, I want a ring." And he gives me this look. And there was like, you could tell everybody was like, "Oh my God, we're going to get kicked out." and he said, "Boy, come." And, I couldn't even get up to the front because there was no room. But somehow I managed to get to the front. And he waved his hand, and I watched the ring get materialized, and he put it right on my finger. And he said, "See, perfect fit." And then, Geeta Kamath was there, and she said, "Oh, Swami's the president of our center," and telling him about me. And Swami says, "Good boy, good boy." And then I went back to my spot all the way in the back. And then that was the beginning of a smorgasbord. Then he made like rings for 5 other people, and he made a necklace for somebody, and it just kind of started, making things for everybody. So fast forward, so that was in 2002, November, birthday time. So my, parents, of course, I told them I got a ring. I didn't, no secrets from parents, so I told them I got a ring. And of course, being Sai devotees and your son gets a ring, what does a mother want to do? We were in Florida, they were in New Jersey. Oh, we want to come see your ring. We want to come see you. So normally they wouldn't see us until the summertime when the kids are off from school. So they would have come in July. But because of the ring, they decided to come in December. They wouldn't have come until July. So when they came, my mom had a lot of ailments, but she hated to see doctors. She didn't like doctors. She never trusted doctors, even though her son is a doctor. She would never listen to me anyways. So she was there, and she kind of complained about her aches and pains again. And I said, Mom, I know you don't want to see any doctors, but here, Dr. Gita's here. She's at our center, just go see her. And she said, okay, I'll see Dr. Gita. So she goes to see Dr. Gita, and Dr. Gita happens to be an oncologist. And Dr. Gita did an exam and found a breast mass. And it turned out that, she had to get workup and everything. It turned out she had a malignancy. And if she had waited until August, it would have been an advanced stage. But Swami materializing the ring brought her in December, where it was stage 2, earlier stage. She stayed with us and was able to get treatment through Dr. Kamath and got her surgery and chemo and radiation and all the treatment. And she did it with me in Florida because the medical community we knew was there rather than in New Jersey. And Swami's ring was her comfort. So I would go with her to all her radiation treatments, all her chemo treatments, and she would keep her fingers on my ring. I had the ring in my hand, and that's what got her through the treatments. So she would just hold the ring while she's getting her infusions, hold the ring, and so the ring was her sustenance. So she got better, and then she says, I just want to be with Swami. So she decided she was going to go to Parthi, and so she's been in Parthi for the past 20 years, and that's just Swami's grace, and there's all sorts of things he's done for her there. But so then that was shortly after she was done with her chemo, and she goes to India, and everything is well. She has a clear bill. She's basically in remission from her cancer. Our center was doing a Seva project, and one of the Seva projects was to help one of the senior members. There's a senior member and some of you may know her, Esther Howarth, elevated soul. Great mentor for me over the years. She was just like everybody's grandmother, mother or grandmother, just an elevated soul. So she was living on her own, and we would, go once a month and help maintain parts of the outside of the house and some of the lawn work and stuff like that. So we went there for that Seva project, and my wife had bought me a necklace with a clasp, a locking clasp, where you screw it and it locks. Because when I do surgery, you're not allowed to wear rings. You have to take them off. And so I'm operating all the time, and I've already lost 2 wedding bands. So she knows my history with rings, because every time I get busy and I put it in my pocket and I forgot to take it off and it's gone. So once that ring came off, she bought me that. So whenever I would operate, I would take I had my wedding band and Swami's ring together on the same finger. So I would unlock the clasp, put the wedding ring and the band on the clasp, and then, so the same thing I did when we did the Seva project, because we're doing a little bit of physical labor. So I took it off, usual routine, locked the clasp, and then we finished the Seva. We were there a couple of hours. It was twilight, and then I went to open the clasp, and the clasp was still locked, but my wedding ring was on there, and Swami's ring was not on there. So as you can imagine, I was distraught. And we went to the local store and rented one of those metal detectors in case it fell off somehow, even though why would the clasp be locked and why would only one ring be missing? So we went around with the thing, and that was useless. I found out that they're useless in your homes because when they do construction, they drop nails everywhere around the house. So that thing was firing everywhere. So that wasn't helping. And I was distraught. But then when I reflected on it, and my wife gave me counsel, and people, and because I was distraught, this ring was there for a purpose. The purpose was to save my mother's life. And when her life was saved, and 20 years later, she's fine. So when her life was saved, the ring no longer had a purpose. And so Swami took it back. And so this is, when he asked me, what do I want? And I blurted out a ring, that was not in my conscience. So he decided that he was going to save my mother's life. That's I'm convinced. And so this is one story of just Swami knows more. I mean, why should we ever ask Swami for a particular result? Right? That story illustrates that to me so well. Because he knows more than we do. He knows the whole picture. We only have flashes. And all we have to do is say, Swami, I submit at your lotus feet. I know you will do whatever is best for me. And whatever lessons I need to learn, please help me learn those lessons. Because that's why we have what we perceive as hard karma. It's nothing but us needing to learn our lessons. And we all know that, right? Sometimes we're butting our heads again, butting our heads. And when we finally learn our lesson, the problem goes away. And I think everything in life is that way. So we just have to pray to be able to have the discrimination so we can know what we need to learn and learn that lesson and have him dictate our lives and make the decisions for us in that regard. So, should we close or one more story? Okay. So that was when Swami was in physical form. Let me share a story with my dad and how Swami saved my dad's life. And this happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. I'm losing track of time. So my dad is living in Florida at the time. And he lives in a retirement community, and they do things together. And the retirement community decided, let's go on a cruise. So they went on a cruise to Europe. Okay, so the community, you may be familiar with it, it's called Shanti Niketan. It's pretty popular in the Indian community. So they went on a cruise to Europe. And I get a call, they're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I get a call from the director of their community. Your dad is very sick. He's on the cruise, he's very sick. He's in the intensive care unit on the boat, and the doctor needs to talk to you. So I'm trying to talk to this doctor on a connection from the boat, trying to get coordinated over the period of a day. And they said that, and of course my dad is kind of a stoic person, and so he was having a lot of upset stomach, but he didn't tell anybody. He would just sit in his room by himself because he didn't want to bother anybody. So 3 or 4 days went by, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, somebody realized, where is he? And they looked for him, and he's by himself in the room. And so they brought him down to the infirmary, and they had him on IVs, and he was very, very sick. And they said, we're going to have to make an unscheduled port of call because your dad is very, very sick. He may not make it. So they stopped at the first possible stop, which was the island of Madeira. I had never even heard of it. It's a part of Portugal. It's the island of Madeira, and the cruise was not scheduled to stop there, but they had to get off. So the entire boat stopped, and they, dropped my dad off. And the day before they were going to drop him off, I'm getting all these calls from the doctor. Where do you want him to go? Do you want him to go to a private hospital? Do you want to have him to go to a government hospital? And he said, well, the private hospitals are usually better, and I'm trying to decide, okay, well, whatever you think is best. And I booked my flight to Madeira. Now, let me preface this story by saying, when Swami is involved, when in retrospect you look back at the incidents, and everything just falls into place without your doing. Everything just falls into place without your doing. And that's what was happening on this trip. I had no idea where Madeira was. I Googled it, looked for a flight, bang. Flight came up that same day to Madeira. I had one or two stops or something, but I was able to get there. In the meantime, I'm on the phone while I'm in the airport. Funny story is the guy that was taking care of my dad he was the one that organized the trip. He said, whatever you do, don't rent a car in Madeira because it's nothing but islands. You know, the roads are tiny and they're all stick shift. He said, whatever you do, it's horrible. Don't rent a car. So I rented a car. So I rented a car in Madeira, and I hadn't driven a stick in, 15 years. But I rented the car, and then I'll tell you why that's relevant later on. So I get there. It turns out the private hospital was not equipped to deal with my dad. He was way too sick. They immediately shipped him to the government hospital. He was in the intensive care unit. They were thinking about possibly operating on him to find out what the problem was in his abdomen, but he was too sick to undergo an operation. So they kept him in the ICU. I got there. I talked to the doctors. They were very nice. My dad is kind of delirious, going in and out of consciousness. And you know, the doctors were saying he needs an operation, but we can't operate right now. He's not going to make it through the operation. So my dad is in delirium. I'm sitting by his bedside. And then all of a sudden, he wakes up. And his eyes are wide open. And he has a smile on his face. And he says, Swami. And immediately, he gained consciousness. His numbers overnight changed. The doctor said not only can he do the surgery, he doesn't need the surgery anymore. And the next day, he was out of the ICU and on the ward. And my dad said he had a dream. Swami beckoned to him, talked to him, and was loving with him, and sent him back. So Swami came in his dream, saved his life, and he was in the hospital for, I was there for a total of 9 days. So Swami came like the second or third day. But then he was so sick and he needed rehab. They wouldn't let him leave the hospital. And then when he was almost ready to leave the hospital, once they found out he had to go back to the US, they said, we're not going to give you permission to take him on the plane. You're going to have to medevac him. He's that sick still. So my dad, being my dad, once he was out of the ICU and I'm sitting by his bed, he says, do not sit next to me. You're here, I want you to go tour the island. He says, I order you to go tour the island. I don't want you sitting here by my bedside. You're not going to do anything. So I got to see the island of Madeira. It's a beautiful island. I recommend everybody go there. But the short story is, the story within the story is, I rented the car and I was following Google Maps. Just turned out to be not a good idea because the Google Maps takes you from the shortest distance from point A to point B, okay? So I'm driving through this island and it takes me off the highway and I'm getting on these roads that could barely fit a car and a half, and it's on the mountains and they don't have any rails. And I'm driving a stick and my hands are clammy and I'm going 5 miles an hour, and then a car's coming the other way. I was like, wait a minute. So that was my Madeira driving experience. It was like really, really scary. And then I was on the top of a mountain coming down, my brakes went out. And this is part of the thing. This is a common theme. When you get put through something with Swami, there's all this other stuff that happens that he helps you with. So the brakes went out. I was on the top of the mountain, and I had not the brakes, I'm sorry. The clutch went out. So I couldn't put it into gear. So the clutch went out. I couldn't put it into gear. I'm at the very top of the mountain. I got to figure out how to get all the way down. And halfway down the mountain, the clutch is gone. So now I'm trying to, I couldn't put it in any gear. So I'm using the brakes, trying to glide down. So then I finally just pulled over and had to get it towed and everything. But in the end, it was well. But there was a lot of little mini incidents that you could tell Swami was testing me even more and helping me even more. And then to try to get him home was another thing, a series of events. Luckily, I had a call we knew a gastroenterologist, Dr. K.L. Reddy in our center. He gave me advice and said they're doing good things. He reviewed the records. Yes, they're doing a good job. I called a cardiologist that I know because my dad has a heart problem. Yes, they're doing the right thing. Make sure they do this. And they gave him wonderful care, wonderful care. So now we had to get him home. And we weren't getting permission to take him on a plane. And he could barely walk. And again, it's just Swami, all of a sudden I'm on the phone and calling all of these places. And the cardiologist was able to send a letter, and we got the ticket, and we made it home. So in the end, everything went well. But there was just chaos. But the long and short of it is, I'm convinced Swami came and saved my father's life. Because he came to him in a dream, and as soon as he had that dream, 180-degree turn, and he got better. So just, where would we be without him? He's just taking charge of our lives, and these are only things that we remember, and we think to tie it into Swami. How many times is he helping us where we don't even think to tie it in? That Swami is the reason that this happened. So I think with that, I've spoken so long, I think I better close, because with Swami we can go on and on and on. But I just appreciate being able to be here. The vibrations are wonderful. Every time I've come to Atlanta, I've just had a spiritually charged time, and it's great to see all the familiar faces and some new faces, and just looking forward to the wonderful bhajan session and chatting with all of you afterwards. So Jai Sai Ram. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for honoring our request and also sharing many of the mind-boggling, stories. And being Guru Poornima, of course, Swami himself said, your first guru is mother, and followed by father, and of course we follow, everyone else. And touching upon the stories on mother and father is very special indeed. Thank you so much for. I know brother has his brother's family came to visit and spend time, but in spite of having busy schedule and family commitments, he took time off just to be with us, and of course sharing Swami's message with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we also have our regional president, Balu Karnam, with us today. Maybe being Guru Poornima, just a thought or two, if you can share. Then we'll quickly have a break, then get back to the program. Balu, Sai Ram.
Offering my most humble salutations at the lotus feet of Swami. Saram to you all. Brothers, sisters, and members of the Sai family of Atlanta. Wonderful to be here. This is the first time we are coming after long, duration because of COVID, all that confusion. Hearing Brother Akshay triggers a lot of memories. One is he took us to interview room, number one. Second is, I had a wonderful time with Brother Akshay because I bother him with so many phone calls whenever I get confused. Then once we flew from Los Angeles to Atlanta, 5.5 hours talking to each other in the plane. That is the first time I realized that 5.5 hours didn't exist actually, that kind of a conversation. Coming to Swami as a mother, Swami as father, I just tell some few incidents and experiences. Swami as a mother, protecting mother actually. See, this was in Vrindavan. Swami used to call us inside. So we used to run. While running inside Vrindavan, we respectively break the all the pots, all the flower pots, everything. See, Swami used to call us horses because we go rushing to get the prime spot to sit around Swami. One such occasion, one of the gentlemen, V.K. Narasimhan, he was a very close, a very big devotee of Swami. He was Indian Express editor also long ago. So Swami came and sat. By the time we are sitting, and used to even collect some of these specs. In the running, people lose their glasses, all that. That's a because kind of a rush. So then Swami said, how are the boys, to V.K. Narasimhan. V.K. Narasimhan immediately complained, saying that boys doesn't have discipline. We were scared actually. Now Swami is sitting and this man is telling we don't have discipline. So then we are looking at Swami. Swami says, no, my boys love me. Can you imagine? Immediately the mother came over, the Divine Mother takes over and says, Swami is arguing with this man and saying, no, look at the boys outside. They run behind film stars. They run in front of the movie theaters. They run behind some kind of, rock stars, all that. These boys are running towards me. Can you imagine? Swami taking over like a mother and protecting us. That was a wonderful incident I can remember as a Swami as a mother. There is another wonderful incident. This was at the summer course time. We used to have wonderful speakers coming and talking to us. One such great speaker, he knew everything, Bhagavad Gita, all sorts of things he has read, it looks. So he was supposed to speak to us, but that day we had a sumptuous lunch, and soon after the lunch this man was supposed to address us. He addressed, but the problem was we went into nice slumber, we went to sleep. So we don't know what he spoke also. To tell you frankly, I am one among them who slept very well that day. So then in the evening, we all ran into Swami's mandir, that is Trai Vrindavan. Swami sat, next to Swami is the speaker. As soon as we settled down, Swami said, how was the talk today? Then we all got scared because, if Swami asked some question from that, what he spoke, we were actually knocking each other, did you know what happened or something like that. Because if Swami picks up somebody and says, tell what this man has spoken, then we are done actually. So immediately then we were praying, Swami, please help us from this situation also. Then Swami beautifully said, Pukkulu chadivi speechuli edam bad habit. Can you say? Swami says this in front of that great man, intellectual. See, that's what God says. Reading books and giving speeches is a bad habit. Then Swami says, Anubhavinchi anandinchi acharinchi cheppite baguntundi. He said beautiful in Telugu. He said, first you need to enjoy the experience. Even a book you need to enjoy. You need to experience. Let's say if John Hislop has written something, you need to experience that. Then acharinchi, you have to follow it. Then you should speak. Brothers and sisters, immediately that great intellectual, the man who was sitting, his hands went up like that. Can you imagine? Swami can correct. He's a mother again, taking care of the children who never heard that speech and nicely slept because of the lunch. He took care of her. Then coming to the Swami as a father, I'll tell you, he's a very strict disciplinarian. One of the summer course quiz again. So it was a quiz program. We all went to Swami and said, Swami, we made 4 teams. What quiz? Swami said, Swami, this is on Indian spirituality, includes both Bible, everything, our awareness course. So Swami said, what are the teams? We said, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema. Swami said, like that, How can Satya fight with Dharma, Dharma fight with Shanti, Shanti fight with Prema? No. Swami said, that's not a good naming. So then finally we ended up, Swami, ABCD. ABCD are the 4 teams. So Swami, we invited. This is a protocol, for everything we need to invite Swami. Swami came and I was in one of the team. When the quiz was going on, one question was posed to our team and one of my colleague in the team was answering wrongly. So seeing that, I pulled the mic from him. I was very famous for these things. So I pulled it and I told correct answer. The answer was correct, but what I did was not correct because Swami looked at me very sternly like this. I'll see you later, kind of. So then I knew from that time I need to hide from him at least for 2 to 3 days because I thought I can hide from God, who is all over, but this is what used to happen when we are, studying. So I thought somehow if I avoid Swami for 2 days, he'll forget. Actually, this is the, that is the way the young adults age we think. So I thought soon after the program, see, Swami came up and gave us a nice photograph. I still have it. Swami, when I went close, Swami pressed on my, shoulder. That itself indication that I'm going to get it right royally. So, but I don't know what. So then I ran into that soon after the program was the lunch. So for the lunch, we all assembled in the dining hall. So I also thought, I sat next to a pillar so that I can avoid Swami seeing me, kind of. So these are all the, things we did it. When I sat there, Swami came into the dining hall in Vrindavan. I thought Swami will go directly to these VIPs. VIPs are waiting for Swami, and Swami will tell students to serve and, take care of them. He's a wonderful host. Then the minute Swami turned into my line where I'm sitting, I know that is the done. I'm going to get it. Swami came and he stood in front of me and said, "Hey, that's it." Then even now I can feel that reverberated voice. So I just went and told Swami Kshaminchandi, saying that when Swami is angry, Swami is never that Swami has only kopam, not krodam. Swami says kopam is it comes and goes. Krodam means continuous anger. See, Swami tells these differences, what you need to have, what you can't have. So Swami, another technique we used to play those days is when Swami is angry, like, you should never look at Swami. You should look at his feet. Then it will be all right. Actually, these are all the techniques. So then, Swami said, and Kshaminchandi Swami said, I said, "Swami, please pardon me." Swami was about to give me a nice tight slap. I was happy. If would have given also, I should have shared with you all that I was slapped by Swami also. So then Swami gave up. In the sense, I said, "Kshaminchandi, please pardon me, Swami." Then I got the energy and I thought of explaining to Swami that why I have to do that. Then I told Swami, "Tappu cheptunnadu." I told him he was telling a wrong answer, Swami, so I had to drag it. Then Swami got again, again you want to talk about it like that. Then Swami says, "It's not about winning. It is about sabha maryada." He said, on the stage you are sitting, you need to behave certain way. So only Father corrects like that, Divine Father. So that is what I thought of sharing with you all. And finally, talking about Akshay, always I see him in Guru Poornima time in Puttaparthi doing medical camp actually. So it remains final, this, one of the experience I'll share with you all and I'll conclude. One day Swami was, coming after darshan. One boy was reading a big book called Physics. I know most of us read that physics book. It's too huge. Swami came to him and said, "Yemadi, what is it?" Then he said, "Swami, physics." Then immediately Swami said, "Yemantad Einstein." Actually, Swami said, "What does Einstein say?" Can you imagine Swami is asking about Einstein? Then Swami said, "E is equal to mc square." Can you imagine? Swami said that. Swami knows physics. All sciences are with him. So then Swami says, "What is E?" Swami said, "E is Ishvara. M is man," Swami says. C square can be written as C and C. Can you imagine? Swami says Ishvara is equal to man with commitment to God. First C is commitment to God, that is devotion. The second C is community service. A man with commitment to God and community service is equivalent to Ishvara. That's what is Swami. C is equal to MC square. Thank you all for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Jai Saram.
Hope there are many more equations left for your next talk. Sairam, everyone. So it's about 4:55. Maybe if we can take a quick 20 minutes break, we'll come back for Prashanti Bhajans. However, Vrindavan Canteen is waiting outside for our break. And also for the folks on the YouTube channel, there's a wonderful program coming up on the regional channel at 5 o'clock. Brother Ravi Kumar, all the way from Prashanthi Nilayam, anytime Ravi Kumar brother talks, mesmerizing, experiences flow through. So feel free to join in, and our part 2 will definitely be streamed as well. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll have a quick break on YouTube as well, and we'll come back. We'll get back once the program resumes. So, like Balu says, it's a stretch break, but don't stretch the break. Yeah? Okay. So let's take a quick break. Sai Ram.